Slowing, yeah, they're slowing down. Yeah, you're right. If it was able to somehow keep that momentum up and not have to worry about keeping the banking that it took to get to that point, right? So we would just say, let's call it velocity rather than momentum, right? Because it doesn't ever gain momentum, right? You don't think it gains momentum, do you?
You do. It does, yeah. If the
It
velocity
does.
is increasing, then you have to gain momentum. Yeah.
Right. But then the problem is though, if it's trying to accelerate to speed up to get to the Earth's speed, right? It has to somehow keep banking east incrementally. That's what your argument on your side usually is. They incrementally
Mhm.
bank east, right, to somehow get it to that speed. But if
No,
Right.
banking east is
no,
what,
Dave. No, Dave. No. I've been trying.
Dan, do you
I've been
want to?
trying
Okay,
to
go
say.
ahead, Dan.
I've been
Go
trying to.
ahead.
The lockstep in the origin point is at a different speed than the lockstep of your landing
Yo,
point.
can you guys unmute Zanick? So sorry, Dan. So sorry, man.
Oh, Zanick here. Great.
So,
I'll unmute him.
your assumption is that it's not going through any speed changes during that. So the 500 miles an hour is incrementally ticked up in the form of what you might call a crosswind at that point, not navigation, because because each point as you move south, the lockstep is at a different speed. So the air you're in is moving, yeah, assuming we're on a globe, assuming blah 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 blah. The air speed of the air you moved into keeps changing, and you're not accounting for that.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
even if that were the case and the airspeed were forcing you to move at the same speed as the Earth, then you would never be able to fly against the spin.
I told you they'd start bringing the wind into it.
Yeah, but the wind doesn't help them. In fact, it makes it worse because then if the wind is locking the plane into the same momentum or the same velocity,
Somehow
tangential velocity as the Earth. I mean,
Yeah.
Zadick and I have had this out. I just unmuted him. But Zadick and I have had this out, and he agrees. If you got there and you were not paying attention to the ground speed, you could be totally off. It could be moving 500 miles per hour faster than the plane. If the air were the solution to this, the plane would never be able to fly against the spin, right? It would
Oh,
never be
but
able to
if
fly.
it
Well, go ahead.
right,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
right, yeah. I'm not sure how to explain it, but like if when the plane is about to land, if its velocity is already in the direction of the airport in a relative to the surface, then like that there would be nothing to sync with or anymore. Like everything that you have to sync with is already synced.
Yeah, if it were able to sink, right? But they never have to worry about trying to sink the plane to the Earth, right? But
Yeah,
they
if
would
they
have
did,
to if it was moving. It
okay,
would
if
have
they
to worry about that if it was moving. So.
no, if they okay, if they would just follow the path that doesn't sync with the Earth, they would be the wind would they would get eastwards wind stronger because the atmosphere is going much faster than them
Oh,
eastwards.
but okay, that doesn't help you because if the wind was forcing the plane to be in lockstep with the Earth, it would never be able to fly against the wind in the westward direction to begin with. But then also
No,
winds go
it's
in
not
all
that it
directions.
forces it.
We can't rely on the wind to make sure that the plane's in lockstep with the Earth. If you
Sure,
relied
the
on the
wind
wind
isn't.
to make sure that the plane's in lockstep, that would be ridiculous. The wind would always completely force the plane to be at the same exact speed as the Earth when it
No,
needs to
the
go
wind
all over
doesn't.
the place.
Oh, 1 second. The wind doesn't forces it. It just adds some. Like if we assume zero
Okay,
wind,
sure.
there's the
Even that
atmosphere is
doesn't help.
completely. Even that what? I didn't even say it.
Go ahead.
Like okay, so if you want to keep up with the atmosphere, there's a very small acceleration eastwards that you have to have just to sync with the surface. I think it's like 0.03
Zero
Yeah,
meters per
one.
second squared.
and
0.01.
doesn't the plane correct for that
Right.
automatically? Yeah,
Yeah.
You would hope so, but no.
Okay, like
it does.
winds.
That would be great if
It
the
it
automatic pilot
does.
took care of it, but it doesn't.
It does. It
Okay.
does.
It does? Okay.
Maybe think of it
Can
on
I
It does.
finish? Just finish.
Doesn't. You guys are fucked.
Oh,
You guys, no argument.
Go ahead,
Zanuck, go
Bacon.
ahead. Zanuck coming in.
No,
It's
no, no,
going to
no,
be
One
no.
another showdown,
Bacon
another
wasn't done.
Coriolis showdown
Bacon
with
wasn't
Zanuck.
done.
Bacon
Yeah, I
didn't
mean go ahead, Bacon.
Thank you. Right. If wind can give the airplane a bigger acceleration than 0.01, meters per second square, then either you're ignoring wind and you're getting also like you're getting out of your route because you don't care about wind pushing our airplane out of your route, or you're trying to follow your route, and if there's a wind that pushes your airplane in one direction, you're going to correct for that. And you won't be able to distinguish if it's an actual wind or if it's just Coriolis and you're not syncing with the atmosphere. It will be exactly the same.
Sounds like a lot
Just
of
trying to follow your
Yeah.
just trying to follow your route.
Conflating Coriolis with the wind is one of the things you guys run to. It doesn't work.
It's not a
Of course,
You're conflating the earth turning with the wind, right?
No, I'm not
think
conflating
we have-
anything. I'm pointing out that you need a very small acceleration just to sync with your surface.
Otherwise, you'd
And-
be fucked without that acceleration, right?
yeah, but you have bigger acceleration from just regular wind.
Right. So I'm saying that
Right,
if
so-
that was the case, it doesn't matter. Saying if you were trying to gauge how the wind is moving your plane one direction or another, and it was very imperative that it's moving exactly with the Earth, there'd be a big problem because you'd have to then counteract
Yeah,
some
but-
winds to make sure you're still locked up with the Earth. But as you said, there's no gauge to tell you how fast the Earth is moving.
You have your route. If you're getting out of course, you just correct back to your course.
There's a magic route. That's the other thing you go to. Magic route, Coriolis
It's not a magic
winds.
route.
Well, you're saying just following the route makes the speed increase its tangential velocity.
Say
If-
you
if
had
the-
say
if
you were
the-
an airplane and you didn't have any control of it all. You just took off and suddenly all your controls were locked straight and somehow was able to keep this flight path. And it happened to be a perfectly still day. And you went north. You would end up, like say you left from Central America, you'd end up, 1,000 miles to the east in
Mhm.
America,
Right.
right? So
Sure, yeah. But if you
Yeah.
were locked up with the Earth, that would never happen, right? If you
You're
were
not-
like in the same
you're not
reference
locked-
frame, that would never happen.
No, the wind. We're saying that we had it's calm. Let's say we had one of those weird days.
Oh, wait, you said it was a perfectly still day. You said it was a still
It
day.
wasn't
So no wind. No
All right,
wind.
let Zanick go, please. Let him do it
The wind
because
wasn't.
he'll bury the argument with himself. Go ahead.
No, I won't. It's very simple. Go north, and if you just let the plane fly, it would end up 1,000 miles in the same orientation, but 1,000 miles to the east. Now, if you finally got there, you'd be like, "Well, I'm flying just like I'm flying 500 miles an hour north, but why am I over New York when I should be over Chicago?"
Right.
Because of Coriolis.
Okay.
It happened so slowly you didn't notice it because, or you're blindfolded or something. You just
Uh-huh.
didn't show up there. Now, if you wanted to
Right.
to counteract that along the way, what would you do? You would actually be turning slightly to the west, or you have a little rudder maybe the entire way to the west. So that 1.5 miles per hour per minute is all you would need to compensate. Think of you're going 500 miles an hour. You're compensating pretty easily just going north with a little bit of pilot input, very tiny bit,
But why aren't the pilots trained to do that?
because it's so small. As we
Oh,
said earlier, hold on. As was
but
said
you'd be
earlier,
off course if they didn't.
as was
You're
said
saying they'd be
earlier,
1,000 miles off course if
all
they didn't
these
do that.
things that go on in the airplane are far to exceed the Coriolis force as you fly north.
Well, yeah, but you're saying you'd be so much off course if you didn't correct, right?
If there was no wind, if there was absolutely no
Right.
wind,
So regardless, even if there was wind, you're going to have to correct, right? So then if you just followed like your path straight, then you'd be off course, just like you
so
said.
now let's say we have a 1.5 miles per hour per minute crosswind the entire way.
Okay.
And we don't have Coriolis. The Earth is totally
Are
stationary.
winds ever that consistent?
No, but it's just
All
so
the
you
way
understand-
there? Are you serious?
So you understand what's going on.
I mean,
So
come on,
we
man.
did that. We would
Mhm.
not notice that amount of wind as we don't even in real life going. Let's say we're going west to east, and we have north and south winds because those exist too. Quite often, I've been in crosswinds flying in the entire path in a
This guy.
crosswind. Right, that same pilot input would be there, and the same effect would also be there as well, just like Coriolis. It just equals it equals a crosswind. It's all it is.
Right. So that's all it is. Okay. So the pilot doesn't have to worry about it.
Correct.
It just does it on its own.
You're following a point to point. Along the way, there
Yeah.
are certain checkpoints that you're trying to line yourself up with,
Mm.
and you steer toward them. The autopilot actually steers for you toward them. But if you didn't have the
Uh-huh.
autopilot on, which I don't have in a Cessna,
Yeah, you
just
don't even
fly
need it. Yeah.
you fly to those positions.
Mm.
And
Yeah, just like it was
think-
stationary, right?
I think you guys are talking past each other. So, I mean, honestly,
I'm
because
just agreeing with his ridiculousness
This
at
flight's
this
doing
point.
this. When I'm flying and I have a crosswind, I might say, why to go follow this highway? Why am I? Is this plane like out of alignment or something? Is my elevators like, or my steering wheel? Because I don't really have much force on it, but I noticed the yoke is turned. It's like this doesn't make any sense. Well, it turns out I had a crosswind the entire time. That's what you would do
Yeah,
to
but-
follow this path. You wouldn't worry about it. You just would
But
turn.
you said it was
No,
still
but this is
day.
what I mean by you guys are talking past each other because you're explaining all of this, Zanick, but he doesn't. He's not understanding why you're explaining that because it's to him. It just sounds like you're explaining what they already conclude the error is, which is a crosswind. But I think the whole point is that when a plane, it doesn't have an instrument to recognize Coriolis. What it has is it has instruments to tell it if it's off course, off tilt, off whatever. But it doesn't have an instrument that tells it that Coriolis is affecting it. And so that's the point: is that the errors that Coriolis would give you are already encompassed by the errors that are causing it to be off course, which includes the crosswinds. And so it's not a statement of this is good evidence for Coriolis. This is a statement that planes are the wrong place to look for evidence of Coriolis,
Right.
because it's not going to be apparent. It's going to be hidden with the other errors.
Correct. Exactly right. And so
You guys are crazy. The planes aren't a good example for Coriolis. Are you
Right.
kidding me?
it's not a good
Okay.
example for us.
Right. You just said it would be off course 1,000 miles when it got there. Why would that not be a good example of Coriolis?
Did you forget already what I said? I go, if there was no wind whatsoever and you were able to just launch the plane off the runway, get to your cruising speed, and you couldn't touch all your controls were locked in positions to fly totally straight.
Right. Yeah, like we talked about many times before, if the plane could somehow use like the star for a reference frame and even, take into account its 15-degree rotation, and it went in a straight line and it was trying to go south towards a certain destination, and it reached to that destination where at least it thought it was going to be, if it went straight towards that destination, like say New York to Florida, if it went straight to that path that it was originally on and never deviated, except for correcting for the winds that we normally have when we're flying, stayed on that straight course, then Florida would be 300 miles per hour or 300 miles off course or to the left of it, right, eastward of it, by the time it got there. So it would be the perfect tool to demonstrate the turn of the Earth if that were the plane's lockstep or dead reckoning, right? If they were able to do that dead reckoning, it'd be the perfect way of showing that the Earth actually spins. Because by the time it got to that point, then Florida wouldn't be there anymore. It'd be 300 miles per hour eastward. In fact, all of our flight destinations would be based on that idea, because if you were going to Dallas from New York, then you would go southward to get to Dallas. You wouldn't go straight across to Dallas the way the flight path shows us, right? The flight path goes straight from New York to Dallas. Right, it's a great idea. It would show the Earth spins. Why don't you guys do that?
It's a great idea. Who wants to spend the gas to be 1,000 miles off course to show Coriolis has an effect? You could do that. You could use. I like that idea. You fly north from Cuba or whatever, and you follow the North Star. You stay right. You stay just follow anything else.
No, North Star doesn't work.
Why not?
North Star doesn't. We already talked about this.
Why not?
Because it's going up to the same point. We talked about this. It's kind of it doesn't matter if that works or not. But we talked about this because it's actually, because it's at the top of the supposed ball. You wouldn't necessarily get off course the way you would think. But maybe it does. Maybe we talked about that. You were trying to say North Star because that was probably
I don't think we talked about
a red herring.
I thought of it.
We talked about it. That's
even exactly why it's perfect. That's why it's perfect. It's because it unlike the other stars, it relatively stays in the same spot.
Right. So if you're
right, that would be why it's perfect. But then it doesn't matter.
Whether you're in Texas,
regardless, the point is.
Hold on. Whether you're in Texas or whether you're in Kentucky, that North Star is still right there, right? So if you left from Mexico and followed the North Star and didn't look at anything else, you would end up 1,000 miles to the east.
Right. And so the plane's in a separate reference frame from the Earth, and that's the only way that'd be possible, right?
No, don't talk about reference frames because that's incorrect.
You don't want to talk about reference. Well, we had some ballers in here earlier saying
You're not-
that it's
you're
in
not-
that
you're
the
not-
plane's in the same reference frame.
Can I
So we
interrupt
can
you?
at least establish that the plane's in a separate reference frame with you guys, right? You
No.
seasoned ballers.
You're in all.
No, it's not in a separate reference frame.
You're
Oh
in
my
all.
God.
You're in all
You gotta
reference
be-
frames simultaneously. It's a stupid argument because that's not
You're talking relativity now.
no. I'm
No,
talking
that-
reference
that's-
frames. What a
that's
reference
just
frame
the-
is a
Ah.
coordinate system for which you view motion. You are in all reference frames simultaneously. That's not the right word you're trying to say. You're saying if we're going north and we go to the North Star, follow it and not worry about what's underneath us. If we make sure we stay perfect, like you said, dead reckoning on the North Star, the Earth will rotate. We will accelerate ahead of the Earth. We will end up in New York.
But okay, sure. Okay, fine. That's great. Yeah, that would be great if you could actually do that. But my point is, if you jump into like, say you jump into the jet stream and you're going 200 miles per hour faster than the Earth is spinning, right? Then you jump out of the jet stream, right? How are you automatically in the same tangential velocity as the ground below you?
You're not. That would add or subtract.
You're not. The Earth would be spinning separately
you're
from the
not.
plane, right? Of course you're not.
Of course.
So then
you're
how are you catching up to be in the same tangential velocity when you land the plane?
You're not. Remember, you're going to be.
You're not. Oh, okay. So you're landing on a moving surface.
You're not listening. If you do this, you won't know where you are. You're following North Star when you get.
I'm not talking about that example anymore. I'm saying in all other way. I'm not even talking about the North Star example anymore, Zanick.
You are so hard to talk to.
I'm not talking about the North Star. I'm just saying that the plane will be out of sync with the Earth in many different occasions, right? If it jumped into the jet stream, it's not moving in the same tangential velocity as the Earth below it. So when it jumps out of the jet stream, how is it landing on a stationary Earth?
Someone says they see the problem. You should stop for a second. So you're saying that because we're going northward and we ended up at some latitude, that suddenly we should be skidding across the surface of the above the surface of the Earth laterally, like flying across toward the direction of our right wing. No, the whole idea of this Coriolis and the whole idea of what we're talking about here is that that doesn't happen. All that happens is the Earth, you accelerate ahead of the Earth, and now instead of being over Chicago, you're over New York. Going the same speed northward as you were. You made sure you were going northward, but you ended up taking a curved path. That's Coriolis. As looked at from an inertial reference frame, you would be taking a curved path. As looked at from a
non-inertial reference frame.
From a non-inertial reference frame.
Right. So there we go. Separate reference frames.
From the non-inertial reference frame, if you viewed the path of the jet, it would be taking a curved path over across the ground.
Forget about the North Star.
Oh, look at that plane! It's turning toward New York.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Stop talking.
Zanick, you don't.
Batshit crazy.
You're just confirming what we agree on already.
Stop talking, please. Just let me finish the sentence. As we go north and we start traveling from the ground, it looks like we're taking this curved path because we're looking at it from a non-inertial reference frame, the rotating reference frame. If you're looking at it from the inertial reference frame, like from the sun or from out in space, the plane looks like it's going totally straight, and the Earth it's going totally straight, and it is accelerating ahead of the Earth. The Earth is rotating underneath it.
Yeah.
So these two paradigms are both true. We're just to view that from different reference frame, which is what I'm talking about when I talk about reference frames. It's point coordinate systems. And you would end up in New York where you thought you might have been in Chicago because you just fought north because of Coriolis. There's no other lateral speeds to rectify. There's no other skidding across the ground horizontally across the wings. You just are in a different spot. And that path you took was curved as viewed from the non-inertial frame and straight as viewed from the inertial frame.
So a pilot that didn't know what he was doing, he's just like in the air and trying to fly somewhere, and he gets off course. He thinks he's headed in the right direction or whatever. He could be totally off course if he didn't know how fast the Earth was moving, right? He'd have to know how fast the Earth is moving below him.
You're absolutely right. So if he's
how does a pilot know that?
Total cloud cover. You can't see the ground. All his instruments are done.
Mm-hmm.
He just flies to the North Star. He thinks he's going to Chicago, and suddenly the break in the clouds. He looks down. Shit, I'm over the coast. I'm over the East Coast. I'm over New York. How did I get there? Because I didn't take Coriolis into account. I just flew straight.
There you go. Right. So why aren't the pilots trained to take that into account is the question.
Because they have radios and radar that tell them where they're at. Exactly their ground speed.
So they're trained how to make sure that they even if they weren't trained to deal with Coriolis, they have radars and ground control to help them. that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah, they would have to worry about that. Yeah, they would have to worry about where they are. You would have to know where you are, and you would also have to know that your plane is going to land on a stationary runway, no matter which way it's facing, no matter what tangential velocity it's moving at. And if that varies from your original conserved momentum, you're going to have a problem when you get there because you have to be moving sideways with the Earth exactly in lockstep with the Earth. So it seems as though you're landing on a stationary Earth.
That's why the Earth moved under you. So you did conserve
It
momentum.
moved under you, so that means in a separate reference frame, right?
What reference frame are you talking about?
Talking about the Earth, the ground reference, the reference frame of the ground movement compared to the reference frame of the plane movement.
The plane movement is in both reference frames. Which one are you referring to?
Okay, so you could, yeah, but you don't give me that. Don't start with that. Don't start with that. I'm talking about the eastward, the tangential velocity eastward of the plane, as opposed to the tangential velocity of the ground below it. Those two reference frames. Those are the ones we're talking about. We're not talking about being in all reference frames and all of that philosophical, conjecture that you want to add to it, so it confuses people listening. Talking about the plane moving sideways eastward with the Earth completely in lockstep, so that when it lands, it seems as though it's landing on a completely stationary Earth, but it never had the conserved momentum to match that by the time it got to the equator from a 500 miles per hour tangential velocity it started with. That's the problem that everyone else thought there was no problem because it's in the same reference frame. At least you're acknowledging they're separate reference frames.
But no, you're right. It gets up there and the cloud breaks open and you go, I'm over New York airport. We're looking right down at LaGuardia. And you're saying, well, you think you should be going 500 miles an hour faster eastward. Because that's what would happen. You want to conserve momentum.
Yeah.
Right? This is the crux of the problem that you have right now.
It's not my problem. It's the pilot's problem. It's the pilot's problem because he can't land the plane. That's the pilot's problem.
That's why. But you did conserve it, even with reference to the non-inertial reference frame, because you are now have moved from where you should be in Chicago 500 miles to the east. So now all you really have to worry about is what happens every minute. Every minute you have like a crosswind of 1.5 miles per hour. So you still can't.
Well, these pilots should be trained to worry about what you're saying they should worry about, is all I'm saying.
All right, you know what's better to do? Let's look at the moon. We're on the
moon. You always go to the moon. You always go to the moon. Look at the moon. Look at the moon.
And we travel south. We travel southward on the moon. In this scenario, it's going zero tangent.
You're roboting a little bit, by the way, Zanick.
Let's say this particular moon is a new moon. Different moon, it's going 1,000 miles an hour tangent, like the Earth. No atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right? So we leave and we close our eyes and just start heading south. When we get down to the equator of the moon, we will be traveling southward, but the moon will also be traveling underneath us at 1,000 miles an hour. We will have that kind of sideways momentum, sideways disparity between the Earth, between the moon and us.
Yeah.
Because
you're roboting a little bit, Zanick, by the way.
So that's what you're saying. You're saying that on the Earth that would happen. We're not going to have this 1,000 miles an hour tangential velocity because we have to conserve momentum. You're right. And if we just went south and didn't do anything else, this spacecraft that was traveling south, and only going south, would then be going sideways by 1,000 miles an hour. We talked about this before.
Yeah, a couple times at least, right?
Yeah. So you're right about that. The moon. That's what would happen on the moon. If we went purely south, we would have 1,000 miles an hour tangential velocity over the moon if the moon was rotating 1,000 miles tangentially. That doesn't happen with the Earth because along the way we have something called an atmosphere and we have something called drag. And along the way, that air mass that's going to be slowing us down from going that way by 1.5 miles an hour per minute will also take some velocity, a lot of velocity out of our path along, because that's a long time. It has 20, 30, 15 hours to probably deal with that.
What I tell you, it's all about the wind. It
doesn't work for him still. I don't. He's saying the magic winds, right? That magic winds help him help the plane stay.
Not winds, atmosphere. Just the fact that there's atmosphere.
Atmosphere, right? Not winds, right? Atmosphere. It's moving atmosphere, right? It's moving the plane.
No, it's
So it's
we have a
acting on the
sphere
plane
wave.
like a
We have
wind, even
sphere
though
wave.
it's not a wind.
Yes, because we have
Hmm.
a situation where along its path from North America all the way to the equator, that there's very light winds that day. Less than 5 miles an hour, all through Mexico, all through South America, wherever we go, it's all very, very light winds. But there's a 500 miles an hour difference between when we took off and the equator. And
So
along
you're
the
saying
path,
these winds are perfectly predictable and consistent, so that it's always perfect in a way. It makes
well,
the plane
that's not going to
somehow.
happen.
No, winds are always unpredictable, and
Right.
they move in all directions.
Say it's a
So I don't
calm
know what you're
day,
talking about.
calm skies all the way through Mexico, through South America, all the way to the equator. It's all calm. At 5-10 miles an hour here and there, it's not going to kill anybody. No big deal. But that atmosphere along the way, because its tangential velocity is changing 1.5 miles per hour per minute, that will impart a small force on the aircraft. So by the time it gets down to Central America, it will have lost a lot of that momentum to changing the momentum of the air around it, putting force into the air molecules. So there will be an issue along the way because you've bled off the speed, this tangential velocity, this momentum, and imparted it in the atmosphere because it was going much faster than you were when you left San Francisco.
Okay, so nobody's claiming that the conserved momentum wouldn't be departed into the air through friction or none of that. It's just that you're taking off. Go back to our old scenario here, Zanick, that we've gone through for hours and hours and hours. That people are probably sick of hearing. If you're starting with 500 miles per hour conserved momentum, but then you're going towards the equator, you need 500 miles per hour additional eastward momentum or eastward tangential velocity, not momentum, because you don't gain momentum. You would have to somehow speed up to the Earth to be able to land on what seems to be a stationary runway, right, Zanick?
Yes, and along the way, the plane
Right.
is turning left.
But
Yes.
why aren't pilots trained to do that? If there's no
Because
difference, if you're
again,
having to make up 500 miles per hour, that would be something that training would be very
15 hours.
necessary to figure out.
Over 15 hours, it's very
Sure,
small.
even that. I don't care how incremental you want to make it. Even that, the pilots would know that that's what they have to do. Otherwise, they're going to be way off course by the time they get there.
Yeah,
or even worse, they're going to have a runway that's moving sideways faster than the plane is moving sideways.
Yeah, but we went over this already, dude. That's the reason why I said what I said before. I told you.
Okay, go ahead.
That
What was your explanation?
A pilot is trained to correct
Deal
his
with wind.
course.
Right.
He's trained to correct his course. Even if there's a gremlin on the side of his plane that's dancing and fucking with the engine just like in a Twilight Zone, and he's causing the plane to veer to the left, he's gonna know that he's going off course. He's not gonna have a detector that tells him there's a gremlin on there. He's gonna know he's off course and he's gonna correct his course. So it doesn't matter what causes it. It doesn't matter what causes it.
Magic course, magic winds, magic, and none of it works, bro. Just because he's on course doesn't make the plane automatically in the same tangential velocity as the Earth.
What does that have to do with anything?
Just saying, just because he's on course, he's automatically going to be in lockstep with the Earth just because he's on course.
No, he's not. He's actually not in lockstep with the Earth. He's traveling in reference. Right. He's traveling in reference to the Earth. He's going at a certain velocity in reference to the Earth.
But
when he gets to the airport, he makes sure that by the time he gets off the plane, he's in lockstep with the Earth.
How does he make sure? Why wouldn't he be trained to make sure?
He looks at the ground and he makes sure that he's going at a speed.
Pilots are trained to look at the ground. The pilots are trained to look at the ground and try to move the plane sideways to be in lockstep with the Earth when they get there.
That's not necessary.
Oh, it's not, because the Earth is never moving. That's the only way that could be possible. If the Earth is moving and it has to look at the ground. Wait, well, how? Oh, it already taken place. Wait, go back. You lost us. What do you mean?
When he's correcting his course, anything that causes the air to be off, that includes Coriolis. So Coriolis is going to cause his velocity to be at a different velocity than the tangential. And what that will be experienced is as a crosswind. It'll seem like there's a crosswind acting on the plane.
Conflation with crosswind again.
It's not a conflation with crosswind. It's how it will show up.
Listen, if the pilot had to deal with a 15 mile per hour consistent movement of the Earth below it, as well as crosswinds, there'd be a totally different situation. right? It's hard enough for a pilot to land with crosswinds when it's trying to land on a stationary runway. Now think about if the Earth were moving 15 degrees consistently in one direction, and it had to deal with that as well.
Yeah, you
Not the same as a crosswind.
Zanuck
Not the
had
same.
already
Can't conflate it.
Zanuck had already said what the acceleration is in most. It obviously changes depending on what latitude you're at, but it's never ever anything that's going to be experienced as an extreme wind.
Well,
It's always going to be a very subtle acceleration,
what I'm looking for,
which is going to be experienced by a very light crosswind.
what I'm looking for
addition to it.
is someone that is on your side, that is completely not just trying to read the script, that says crosswinds are so much more than a Coriolis. It doesn't even have to worry about it, or it doesn't have to, just follows its course, and it's automatically in lockstep with the Earth, and it can land on what seems to be a stationary Earth, or incrementally it's going to do it, or automatic pilot's going to do it. Please, just be fucking honest, man.
Yeah,
honestly.
I know. Here's the thing, dude. I'm not gonna get pissed off at you because you do this and you get at people, but why don't you for a second just realize, or just consider that maybe me and maybe Zanuck are not being dishonest with you. We're not reading a script. We didn't know. Hold on, dude. We didn't agree with each other beforehand what we were gonna say, but we actually understand what we're talking about, and we're trying to explain it to you. So we're not reading a script. Right.
Okay.
In my head, I'm understanding how it works. I'm not being dishonest with you. And so,
I meant by that,
I know, but it's fine. But it's aggravating because you're not attempting to try and see it from what we're trying to express.
No, I understand why you think that. I don't know why you think that make it work, but it's the same argument, right? But it's never worked. It's never been adequate. It doesn't work.
He talked about looking. You start getting like a little pedantic. He says looking at the ground. No. But there's something called VOR that you look at. These are radio stations along the way, and they're all over the world. And you find out, make sure you stay on path. You're looking at your cockpit. These are the
staying on path doesn't increase your velocity sideways.
Hold on. Hey, stop. The VOR system allows you to triangulate and find your way down to where you want to go. And along the way, whatever it takes to get there, you move the stick. You move the yoke, whatever you need to do to get there. And that small change in direction along the way is all you need to do to fight the Coriolis effect, which is very, very small compared to other things.
Well, you said they need to do it. Why do they need to do it?
Because if you didn't do it, you would, like we already started with the example that if you didn't do it, following the North Star, for example, you'd be off course by 1,000 miles.
Well, then why aren't pilots trained to do what they need to do?
Because, oh my God, it's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, see, you guys exhausted because you realize there's a contradiction.
Kosho
the pilots would be trained to do what they need to do.
Because all they have to do is they're only trained to whatever happens. Like you said, gremlins or whatever's on the plane, crosswinds, engine out, updrafts, downdrafts, whatever. All you do is follow the course. Use the VOR.
Doesn't
follow
work.
the VOR so that you stay on course to whatever your destination is along the way.
Well, if you can convince yourself that staying on course makes it go faster sideways with the Earth, but that doesn't make it make sense. Just because you're on course doesn't increase your tangential velocity sideways, moving with the Earth.
Why does it work with crosswinds? No, why does it work in reference to crosswinds then? Because if crosswinds are having an effect on your plane sideways, that same correction corrects for that. So why wouldn't that work for anything else that's causing your plane?
Because pilots are trained to assume the Earth is stationary.
What does that have to do with it?
Because it would be a totally different situation if the Earth weren't stationary. And how you can think the dynamics of a stationary Earth and a not stationary Earth are the exact same, and the pilots wouldn't have to be trained to deal with that is just mind-blowing that you think it works. If the Earth were moving, it'd be a totally different situation than if it weren't moving when you're flying a plane over it. I don't get why that's not obvious to you guys. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I was talking to somebody.
Yeah, sure you were.
You know, you stumped me is what happened. You just really stumped me, and I had no idea what to
okay.
say.
So why is it that a pilot's trained to treat the Earth as stationary, but the Earth is moving, and you're saying it's exactly the same, that they don't need to be treated, they don't need to be trained to fly over a non-stationary Earth? It's just the same as stationary. They don't even have to have training. Just stay on course and that fixes it. That's really what you believe? Now you're talking to somebody again, I'm sure. Yeah, conversation, right? So funny. Zanick, you talking to somebody too?
No, I'm here. I'm just thinking. I wish my dad was still alive.
So you're saying that a moving Earth is totally so much the same as a non-moving Earth, that they could be trained to fly over a non-moving Earth even though it's moving.
Yeah, because I don't know what part of
Oh, yeah?
all
Same
factors
thing.
worry about that they don't worry about it.
You don't think there'd be a factor with the Earth moving
No,
as opposed to not moving?
no,
No. Okay, then
it's too small.
too small, right? Even though it'd be a 500
There's
mile
no
per hour
difference
tangential
between-
difference.
It's like, hey, here's a special airplane. By the way, this airplane will fly perfect in every condition except for when there's a 1.5 miles an hour crosswind. Oh,
Conflating it with crosswinds doesn't help you, Zanick. We already went over this.
no, it's exactly.
There's crosswinds in all directions. It doesn't correct the plane automatically.
It's the reason that we don't worry about it because it acts
Oh,
like
because of crosswinds? Because there's a consistent crosswind that makes it somehow fix it, even though it doesn't fix it, and that's the reason you don't worry about it?
You know what? Fly you can, all you want, and all your crosswinds will be directions, but this plane cannot fly if the crosswind's ever consistent for more than an hour, and you're in trouble. We got to give you special training for that. That's what you're saying. It's kind of silly.
What? No, it's not. I'm saying that if the Earth were moving, it'd be special training to land on a moving Earth.
No, it's not moving enough to worry about.
It's not moving enough. 500 miles per hour faster than where you started off from. That's a lot. That's a lot of difference, regardless of how incremental you want to say that. The correction would be that they're never trained to correct for. They're never trained to do this special correction that would make them in the same tangential velocity. But it's so minor, they could just treat it as stationary. You realize how ridiculous you sound?
Let's say you've been only trained on driving a boat on Lake Michigan, a Lake Pontchartrain. You're not allowed to go in the ocean because there's currents out there. So just you have to be special training for the currents.
That is so funny.
Stay in the lake.
That's so funny.
Silly it sounds.
That's hilarious, dude. You really think that's a good example?
It's a great example.
No, because you've gone through this scenario with me, and there's recordings of it that I could show, that we could play right now, where you're talking about, okay, so you went to the equator and you were like 500 miles per hour difference. You'd be like, oh my God, the Earth is moving 500 miles per hour faster than my plane is moving. Now I got to catch up to the Earth. And you went through all these different scenarios of saying that it would be a big problem for the pilot if he didn't make sure that he was in that same tangential velocity. How are you saying now that it's not it's like the same thing? And I love the fact that you're thinking that the Earth moving would be the exact same thing as it not moving according to flights. Are you serious? Yes. Okay. That's what you're sticking by. Doesn't matter if that the Earth's moving, even though it'd be moving 500 miles per hour faster at its destination than where it took off from.
Correct.
Same thing.
Because that change is so infinitesimally small.
But you also acknowledge that if you didn't correct for it, you'd be off course. And the Earth would be moving at a different speed than the plane's moving, and all that. You've already acknowledged it'd be a lot of different things to be concerned with.
Well, there's one. You'd be off course. That's the only.
And the Earth could be moving faster than the plane is sideways.
No, that's why you're off course.
So you're saying that there'd be no way that the plane could be moving at a different tangential velocity than the Earth is moving. That would never happen?
Unless you made up that. You gain momentum along the path.
Yeah, like if you have a bad pilot and that happens, you got to have some training to figure out how to fix that. Otherwise, you're going to crash.
What you need is keep it on. Okay, I don't want to say it again. The only thing you need.
Keep it on course, right? Keep it on course, and then the pilot's not so good. He got off course. He crashed his plane because the Earth is moving faster than he is.
You're being silly. Sorry, I'm back.
Not silly. It's exactly what would happen if the Earth were moving.
That 1.5 mile an hour crosswind. And he's off course. He kept on.
This is a crosswind conflation. Crosswind conflation.
Hey man,
crosswinds and Earth moving are not the same thing. I'm sorry. Just because the Earth moves in relation to the plane, when the crosswind makes their plane move, doesn't mean that the Earth moving consistently 15 degrees an hour in one direction is the same thing as a crosswind. It's not the same thing.
We chill a little bit.
Exactly the same as a crosswind.
Yeah,
It's
can
not
we
the
chill a
same.
little bit? Hold on. Go ahead, Zane. Go ahead, Zane.
I'm gonna say, oh my God, I remember now. He's gonna be funny.
You guys have no argument, and
That's
you're
fine. No,
arguing that
no. Listen.
that
But
the,
no,
that the,
don't waste
the
time with
Earth
rhetoric,
moving.
dude. Don't waste
It's
time
not
with rhetoric.
rhetoric. I'm saying that the Earth moving and the Earth not moving are two different situations for a fucking plane. If you don't acknowledge that, then I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are hilarious.
It's great, dude. I have a question for you. And I wasn't running from you before. I really was talking. I had to take my sister's
Oh,
dog.
sure. I'm sure you were. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no. Are you backing Zanick that the Earth moving and the Earth
No,
not
I
moving are
have
the
a question.
exact same?
I have a question for you, dude. Question, okay? We're saying that the air will be hot, will be hidden in the crosswind. So that's my
The air's hidden in the
stance.
crosswind.
The error of the Coriolis is hidden in the error of the
I've
crosswind.
heard that millions of times. That's
It
why I
doesn't
say
matter. It doesn't matter.
sounds like you're
It doesn't
following a
matter how many
script.
times. It
Doesn't
doesn't matter how many
work.
times. It doesn't matter how
Hidden
many
in the
times you've
wind.
heard it, dude. It doesn't matter how many times you've heard it. That's
It
not
doesn't
my
work.
question. That's not my question, dude.
Okay.
You know what? You know what? Today's my birthday, man. Okay, today's
Yeah,
my
you always
fucking
say that when
birthday.
you're in trouble.
Listen to me, dude.
I
No,
love
dude.
it when you say that, 'cause
I
that
just
means you're
want
in
you to give me
trouble and I
one
got you.
gift. The only gift I want for you is to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up when I'm talking, dude. All right?
Go
That's it.
ahead, man.
Okay, because I have a question
Yeah,
for you.
you're gonna try to make it like back on me with a question that you think's a gotcha that I
No,
can't
dude.
answer. So then you feel like, okay, I didn't get got myself.
Dude, there's not gonna be any need to guess if you wait 5 fucking seconds. Okay?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
The question is,
Yeah.
as I said, my stance is that the error in Coriolis will be
Hidden in the winds.
in the air.
Hidden in the winds. I'm just hidden in the winds.
That's good, man. See, I asked you not to talk, so you decided to fucking sing instead. Okay?
It's hilarious, dude. Come on.
Listen,
you have to see the humor in this. Hidden in the winds.
It's hard for me to see the humor in this when I'm livid. Okay? Because
You're not livid.
Nonstop. I'm a little bit livid, dude. But regardless, here's the question. Let's stay on track. Stay on track. Here's the question. It's hidden in the crosswinds. Okay, that's my stance. So the question is,
that's a pretty good stance.
The question is, how in your mind, you have a plane. I just got it for you. It's a normal plane. It's got all the sensors on it.
Sounds like it's my
planes
birthday.
have. Yeah, it's your birthday, and I got you a plane. It's got all the sensors on it, and I'm claiming that Coriolis is affecting the plane. And actually, in this universe, Coriolis is certainly affecting the plane. So, at the plane I just bought you, how are you going to realize this? What part of the plane are you going to sense? What's going to show up to you that tells you that Coriolis is acting on this plane? And how are you going to make a distinction between what it's doing to the plane versus what something else that's taking you off course is doing to the plane?
Okay, so if I understand your scenario correctly, you're saying that if in a totally different universe somehow the Coriolis is a problem for the plane, right? How would the pilot then worry about the Coriolis where it actually is a problem rather than not being a problem, as if the Earth were stationary
that's not the
actually
question.
moving?
It's not the question. The question is, in this universe where Coriolis affects the plane the way that we claim it does, how are you as a pilot going to realize that and make a distinction between Coriolis taking you off course or anything else taking you off course? What is going to be the indication that tells you that that's Coriolis doing it versus anything else?
Right. So how is it not hidden in the winds is what you're asking.
I'm asking you, how are you expecting us to realize it? Because you're laughing nonstop when we're spending. I heard Zanick 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
I'm asking you, how would a pilot realize that it's the Coriolis and not?
What's making me laugh is that you're saying that the pilot's trained. You're acknowledging the pilot's trained to treat the Earth as stationary, but the Earth is moving, and the pilot does the same thing. It doesn't matter. But then there's all these other things about like being off course and all these other things that you should have to worry about. So yeah, your question is, how would the pilot know if it's the wind making the plane off course or if it's the Coriolis making the plane off course? And how do you make that distinction?
Specifically, how would he know that it's Coriolis versus anything else, including the wind, but anything that's taking him off course? How is he to know that it's Coriolis doing it and not something different? What's the indication?
The Coriolis. Okay, first of all, Coriolis force, right, is what you're talking about.
This is your time, man. This is your time to
answer. But you're calling Coriolis as if this thing that like acts on the plane, right? Coriolis is a difference between the movement of the ground and the trajectory of the object in the air. Because this object in the air is in a separate reference frame from the ground, And if the plane were to act like a bullet and just go as straight as it could, it would be off course, because the Coriolis effect would be that it is no, actually the Coriolis effect is just the way it looks from space, or wherever you want to say, the third reference frame where you're looking at the course, right? That would be the Coriolis effect, right? It just makes it seem as though it's going in a curved path, even though it's going in a straight path. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the displacement that would occur if the plane were traveling completely dead reckoning to south, and it ended up off course from where it was, where it ended up trying to get to, like we're talking about with Florida from New York, right? So being off course is you're trying to make it as if the course itself is going to correct the plane into this new sideways tangential velocity. Problem is that you've got a gradient of tangential velocities that the plane is flying over, right? And it needs to treat the Earth as stationary, but it only has the conserved momentum from its original takeoff spot. Let's say it's 500 miles per hour. Now, we're supposed to assume that the plane is moving eastward tangentially at 500 miles per hour, even though there's no gauge for the pilot to know that it's moving sideways 500 miles per hour, yet forward at 400 miles per hour, right? That's something that we just treat as a given, right? It's just in the background of this, like, okay, we were moving with the Earth when we took off, so we're just going to keep moving sideways with the Earth, and we're going to assume that 500 miles per hour tangential velocity never goes away. It's conserved. But hold on, wait. When we get to the equator, we need to be moving at 1,000 miles per hour sideways with the eastward momentum or the velocity of the Earth. But we only have 500 miles conserved momentum from where we took off. So how are we gonna now land on what seems to be a completely stationary runway, which it always is, no matter which way the runway is facing, no matter what tangential velocity it's supposedly going, no matter what direction the plane flies, it's always going to not ever have to worry about landing on anything but what seems to be a stationary Earth, which would be impossible if the Earth were actually moving, because it doesn't have that sideways momentum that it had when it went from 500 miles per hour. It wouldn't have the same velocity sideways when it gets to the equator. So I would say that'd be one way to tell. You get to the equator and you don't have that sideways momentum, and you see that the Earth is actually moving below you. That'd be the way to know that it's not the crosswinds that made the Earth move, because that doesn't make the Earth move anyway. The planes moving with crosswinds is totally different than the Earth moving below it. There's no conflation there on my part. You want to say that the movement of the Earth and the amount of distance off course it would be so little compared to these crosswinds that go in every direction that it doesn't even have to worry about it. It just follows its course and it gets there. And somehow it seems like a stationary runway, even though it doesn't have the same tangential velocity as the plane started with. So how does it make up that velocity, especially if it goes west-southwest? How does it bank east to get any eastward momentum, Kosho? If it's trying to bank east to get more eastward momentum, but it's only flying west and south towards the equator, how does it bank east to get more eastward momentum?
I'll tell you exactly.
Not that pilots are trained to do that anyway, which it would have to be if it were actually moving.
I'll tell you exactly how it's done, because it's fairly simple. And it's only been said to you 18 times in the past few minutes.
Really? Go ahead. How's it do it? Stays on course?
Yeah. What happens is the pilot tries to go to where he's going. Okay. And he hopes everything is going hunky-dory. And it is. Until something happens. And he doesn't know what it is. But he's not worried about what it is, because he's already prepared for it. He knows he's off course. He corrects his course. Whatever's just happened to him, it's causing him to appear to be going laterally, horizontally, like sideways at some extra velocity that wasn't there before. He doesn't have any indication that it's the wind, because he forgot his wind sensor. Okay, so it could be the wind, might not be. It's not as strong as the wind, not even close, but it's still happening. And so what does he do? He just corrects his course. Easy. And then
he's automatically in the same tangential velocity as the Earth.
He's not in the same tangential velocity to begin. He's flying in a plane.
Yeah, and he would have to pick up tangential velocity as it goes towards the equator, eastward, because it's 500 miles per hour faster eastward than it was when it started off.
Yeah, if let's pretend like it's not a plane.
So how does it pick up momentum? Staying on course doesn't do it. Crosswinds don't do it.
it's the same mechanics as a plane, but let's just make it simpler so we can picture what's happening and say that it's on the ground, okay? And the track that it's
No,
taking, the track that it's
no, that's
drawn
non
on the
sequitur.
ground.
Don't
It's drawn on the ground in paint, okay?
same reference
And
frame.
this plane that's on the ground, that's drawn in paint, it's following that yellow line. But it's going in the same direction.
Why do you have
that
to put it on the ground?
The yellow line is pointed because I don't know how else to make you understand this, dude.
No, because
It's
but no, I don't understand it if it's on the ground because planes don't fly on the ground. They fly in the air in a
fine.
separate
Okay,
reference
okay,
frame, and
okay,
there would be a 500-mile-per-hour different
okay.
speed. They would have to go
Okay, so
eastward 500 miles
fine,
per hour
fine.
faster than where it started from.
Okay, I have
How does
magical
it gain
paint.
eastward
I have
momentum?
magical paint that I can paint in the sky, and it stays there. Okay, because I can't use the ground. So
Okay.
there's a line drawn from where he is to where he's trying to go. All he's doing is following that line.
Okay.
Something happens in the middle of his flight. A giant pushes his plane. Some wind blows it. Coriolis happens. Who knows what happens? But he's following that yellow line, going the same direction. But he's moving further away from the line. So he's noticing that he's moving sideways at some velocity. Something caused him to do that. What is he going to do? He's going to correct his trajectory so that he's back on that path. That's all he does.
Okay, so how does it gain eastward momentum?
He flies back towards that line. He makes
But
sure
how does the line make him gain eastward momentum?
his line doesn't do that. His hands do that. His hands move the plane.
How does he do that?
It moves. It toggles the fucking.
So he has to make sure that he's moving 500 miles per hour faster by the time he gets to the equator.
All he's worried about doing is following that path that he was meant to be following. That's all he's doing.
No, but I'm saying that what if he doesn't follow that path, then he's going to be fucked by the time he gets there.
Yeah,
and if the path doesn't make him go faster eastward, just
No,
following
it's
the path doesn't make him go
doesn't-
faster eastward.
The path doesn't do that. It's him purposely trying to be on that path is what does that. If he's not caught up with it, he purposely lines himself up.
So
with
him
it.
staying on the path makes him move eastward faster.
That's the whole purpose of what he's doing. He's trying to make sure he's on that path.
Staying on the path makes him move eastward faster. Is that what you're saying?
Dude, he's on a plane that he has controls over. He has an engine.
Right.
He's moving.
He's got to pick up 500 miles per hour eastward.
Yeah, the plane helps him do that.
Amount.
Yeah, the engine helps him do that.
The engine helps him.
The engine helps him. He guides the plane so that it lines up to his path, and he stays on that. If he goes off that path, he corrects that. It's that simple. I don't know how.
On the path gives him more eastward momentum, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah,